Hello everyone and welcome back. My name's X and we are back with another video for you today. Today we're going to be covering the controversies between casuals and competitives when it comes to players and the focus for Halo and when it comes to Halo Infinite and other Halo games going on forward. But yeah, I can't even believe that, you know, this is a controversy. It's probably the second or third most controversial thing out there, even though in reality I don't think it should be a controversy. This video originally was going to start out as a Halo news video for something else that came out, but then as I kept diving into it, I realized that this was more of a controversies video, and so I decided that instead we're going to do this. And it's kind of like, you know, talking about like why you know, Halo, when it comes to Halo recently, why 343 has this competitive focus and this casual aspect gets, you know, tossed to the sidelines like it doesn't matter. I'm going to be straightforward on my opinions on this. I feel that Halo should both be a competitive and casual experience. It should be open for both. That's the whole design, in my opinion, that Halo's always, you know, started itself off on, was the fact that you could play it either way and have a great experience. What's this big deal about why is the competitive side the only one that seems to get all the attention when it comes to 343's version of Halo games, which I think is probably one of the contributing factors of why people just feel so turned off with Halo games recently. And so it's funny because this article that I was looking at was the one that kind of brought this up here, and what's funny is almost no major YouTubers, you know, either talked about this, or if they did, they were only talking about the microtransaction part of it. And when it came to what was it, when they did actually brush up on this news thing, if some of the YouTubers that did brush up on it, and some of the people that shared this news article around Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, and I noticed a lot of people, you know, going around saying, oh, thank God, finally, you know, this is happening. And I'm just, yeah, anyways, here's a news article. It says, Halo Infinite to have a strong focus on esports and multiplayer gaming. Now, this can be one of two things here. This either means that they're just gonna, when it comes to esports with Halo, that they're gonna try and make sure they fund it and make sure that it's really you know, driven home that this is gonna have esport playability, that it's gonna be very cared for when it comes to esport competitions and whatnot. And then there's another part of this that it makes me feel like that what they're saying is they're going to make it even more competitive than the other Halo games, that they're going to make it even more competitive than Halo 5 and all this stuff. And that's what kind of concerns me. Like, you know, guys have probably watched my video about Battle Royale, and you know that I, you know, want to hope to see Battle Royale, but I'm not going to be one of those people that says that if it's on the game, it's going to be the end of it and whatnot, versus, you know, the opposite side. You have some people going saying, if Battle Royale's in Halo, it's going to be the death of Halo, and all those stupid arguments. See, I don't think Halo necessarily will fail if it doesn't have it, but I will feel like it's a big missed opportunity. But when it comes to this thing here of Halo being so competitive focused that the casuals get put aside, that's what's more concerning me when it comes to this. And that's why this article has me a little skeptical and a little bit worried when it comes to Halo Infinite. Again, people are going around saying, oh, thank God they're finally focusing on the competitive side of Halo. And I'm just sitting here going, what? What do you mean focusing on the competitive side? That's all they've been doing. That is all they've been doing. Seriously, when it comes to a lot of the Halo games, let's look at it. Besides Halo MCC, which was more of a trying to just bring all the other original Halo games back together and whatnot, and Halo 2 Anniversary was pretty much just supposed to be like Halo 2 multiplayer, but more updated in a way, but with some of the modern day gaming aspects. But other than that, there's not this like drastic change in the multiplayer itself. But when it comes to Halo 4 and Halo 5, all they've been doing when it came to the news for that game, when it led up to it and everything, was always, how do we make it more competitive and more competitive and more competitive every time when it comes to the multiplayer? So the point where I think it's one of the turnoff factors of why people don't like to play it. It really is. It's kind of like, oh, you guys, we got more and more news for competitive players, great news, and then it's like, oh yeah, casuals, there might be some changes that will give you news updates right when the game comes out, or not even have anything until the game comes out and then add it in later. Big example with Halo 5, there was no infection, there was no BTB, there was no firefight, and no Forge, and there was just a bunch of things that, you know, the casual side loved that they got nothing. It was like, unless you're a competitive player, there was like almost nothing at the start. It was like, oh boy, where is everything? Oh, this is all they have? Seriously, that's how it felt when Halo 5 came out. And so I'm just, you know, wondering why all of a sudden did Halo become this competitive focused only and casuals kind of got tossed aside. They did have, you know, really good updates later, but again, later, like a year or more before some of these updates got fixed. In fact, some of the things that, you know, really troubled me were how, like, almost all the updates that came out for Halo 5 were almost always competitive focused and almost nothing for casuals for a lot of them. They did a lot of updates for competitive sides and just, you know, tossed the rest of us to the side like it didn't matter. If you have been a long-time Halo fan, you've probably noticed with 343's versions of Halo that it always seems to have this far more competitive side to it, and it almost ignores the casual side entirely. Unlike Bungie games when it came to Halo, where they seem to have always a focus on both sides of the community. They thought, you know, both sides mattered on this, and that's the thing. Like, casuals and competitive players both were part of Halo since the beginning. There's a very small fringe group of competitive players that are extremely toxic that literally think that the game revolves around them, and they're surprised when I tell them the fact that, well, not really surprised, they're in denial when I tell them the fact that competitive players actually make usually around 10 to 25% of the community and casuals make up the rest. They go, no, that's not true, and even when they look at statistics, they don't want to accept it. I used to do a voting poll every Halo game or so. I'd always like to just be interested in asking, like, where the community was at. I never actually did it for anything like news-wise. I never was up to that level of, like, you know, deciding to do a YouTube channel, do news on it, but I did one recently, and I thought I might as well use for the video, giving you kind of a clear example of where the competitive and casual aspects of Halo are, where most people stand. And the fact of the matter is, you know, casuals really do make up a good majority of this. If we were to even have the numbers of people on Halo 5 right now, of how many people are on the competitive side versus how many people are on the casual side, like how many people are in Arena versus how many people are in Social, Forge, and custom games, you'd be surprised. There's a lot more people in custom games and social games than there are in the arenas. And so people, you know, seem to act surprised by that with the competitive community, when I think it's not even a surprise. That's usually the majority of Halo fans. It's fine. It's not like it's a bad thing. I mean, some games are, you know, either competitive focused only, like Counter-Strike, Arma, I'm trying to think of some other like major ones, like especially Gears of War is far more competitive when it comes to that multiplayer. It's like ridiculously competitive. But Halo has never had this, you know, focus when in its early years. It never was, oh, it's all competitive focused and casuals got, you know, like maybe some little scraps on the side. And that's kind of what they've been feeling lately. That's why I hope for Halo Infinite when it launches that it has a bunch of stuff in this, and it's not just like one, like, oh, here's all the competitive stuff, and, you know, casuals, you get your stuff later on. That's what I'm not hoping it doesn't happen with Halo 5, that they have everything at launch, so you don't feel like when it comes out you have nothing to do. And so when it comes to, you know, like let's you know, go back a bit here. This is why this video is going to be a little bit lengthy, guys. A lot of these controversies are always going to be really long. Hopefully I don't make it an hour long, but it's going to get probably a little lengthy here. But we're going all the way back. We're going back to, you know, you go back to Halo CE days, you always had something to do. You always had something. The campaign was absolutely amazing to play. I could play that campaign over several times. It was so good to play back then. And you could always play custom games with friends. They even eventually, you know, had, you know, Custom Edition, which had tons of fun stuff to do on the PC. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, you had, you had that, and then you had the competitive side. People still could play competitively in that game. And the thing was, when it came to their multiplayers, especially not just Halo 1, but all the way through, I think up to Halo 3, for the most part, they were all the same when you played it. It was the same map, not much was usually changed. There was, times where there was like, in Halo 3 Snowbound and Boundless, which had some changes to, cater to the competitive players. But other than that, there was not many changes that were made to the series of games. When the map came out, when like Halo 2 came out and it had Lockout, that was Lockout. It never changed to anyone's liking. It just how you played the game is how it became competitive. If you were like one of those people, like, you came up the blue lift and you saw a guy that was going towards the BR tower, hooking around the corner on the left side, and you knew about those explosive devices over there, you could chuck a grenade and kill him if you were good at practicing it and landing the grenades and everything. That was you having that competitive aspect to it. It wasn't forced onto you. You could play it casually, or you could learn how to do trick jumps to get around the map quicker. That was on you to learn how to do that, not on the game forcing you to have to learn that. And that was the cool part about the Halo series when Halo 1 through 3. That's why it was like considered the golden era of Halo games, because of the fact that it had everyone in mind. And then when it came to news for news game. When it came to the news for new Halo games, there was always this thing of always making sure that every side got the attention. When it came to Halo 2, for instance, we got news about, Halo 2's matchmaking with competitive features, like it was going to be adding ranks, and even had like a clan-based system back then. I'm not sure if anyone remembered that, but yeah, there was a whole competitive side to Halo 2, and it was probably I think Halo 2 and Halo 3 were the biggest MLG games at the time. There was just, I don't even think Halo 5 even comes close to comparison of how competitive those two games were. They were, big time, the biggest ones out there, and they were just, there was no comparison on these games. They were full on the most competitive games you could play at the time, and so it had that, constant news of like, oh, we got matchmaking, oh, we got clans, oh, we got this, and then on top of that, they had other things as well for the casual side for news before Halo 2 came out with. So they had things like showing off like you could customize your games more, which was pretty cool. There was tons of classic Halo 2 games. I covered those in my Halo Custom Archive, like Cat and Mouse, Infection, Michael Jackson. All those games were pretty fun to play back then, and it's just like you had those. You had also, again, yeah, you could customize your character. You could be, a Spartan or an Elite. You could customize your emblems. You had fun back then. You could do whatever you want if you were a casual or a competitive player. You had both sides of the community both getting updates, and constantly they always made sure that both sides, when it came to updates and stuff, they always made sure those things were getting addressed and fixed and cared for. Then you had things like in Halo 3, when news came out, they showed off new weapon balances to the game. I know some people didn't like the fact that they nerfed the BR in Halo 3, that Halo 2 was, pretty much the god gun of BRs. It was the best one of the BR series, in my opinion. But yeah, you had weapon balances and other skill factors in there, and learning how to use new weapon abilities, like the plasma pistol now could EMP a vehicle, because now vehicles couldn't just roam around free. You could actually do something about that, which kind of brought a little more balance to the vehicle aspect, because sometimes vehicles would just dominate. So they're constantly trying to balance and tweak the maps and make sure everything matches up. And then there's also, they added in equipment to make the maps better flowing, so you could use those things like using a grav lift to get to a certain spot in the map. They had some pretty cool ideas of things that they did. I know some people didn't like the equipment, but that's for another video, another time to talk about those kind of things. But on top of that, there was for the casual side, there was the theater mode that was in there that you could watch gameplay with friends. You had Forge, so you could really go crazy with the amount of customization people made. You could even customize your character even more. And also both you could use his characters both in ranked and social playlists, and it got so amazing. And then Halo Reach is kind of like an interesting story here. It had all these great features in it with Halo Reach when it was announced. It had customization of your character even further, far better than what you had in Halo 3. You could customize your character to a great extent. The firefight from Halo 3 ODST was brought in. Probably not as good as the original ODST, where it was super survival competitive, but it was fun to play casually. But Halo Reach, it was more like just go on massacres of killing Covenant. And then later on, they added in a competitive ranking system that kind of fixed all the issues with Halo 3's ranking system, where it had a reset on it, and that Halo 5 later was inspired from. Halo games, for the most part, were always, focused on trying to please both sides of the community at all times. And so with Bungie's Halo games, it was always focused on improving the experience for both casuals and competitives alike. No one got ignored when it came to those developers. But we have to admit, though, that when it came to Halo Reach, it did get dropped from MLG, and though there's no major reason or any specific reason why it was dropped, a lot of people had speculations. There was things about claiming that armor lock made it no longer competitive, and jetpacks were an issue, supposedly. I didn't really have a problem with jetpacks, but apparently some people were claiming jetpacks were not, balanced. And then you had other people who went off and probably for the most part, probably the most accurate reason why it wasn't necessarily competitive was the fact that Bloom was in the game. Even though there's some people liked it, some people didn't like it, there was good arguments of why Bloom was a problem with the competitive side. Also, the fact is it didn't even have a competitive system when the game first launched. In fact, the ranking system for the competitive side didn't get added until later. So they only had a progressive ranking system at the time and no competitive ranking. And because of that, there was a lot of divides on that. And also because when it came to wanting to please these competitive players, it felt so ignored, for good reason. They felt ignored and, needed to get some attention. When they finally did give them attention, they kept trying to please them, and they kept trying to, get Halo Reach back into the MLG scene. And so we had things like them adding in extra playlists on the competitive side, and so you had both a arena competitive playlists of game modes, and then you had the TU updates, which, by the way, that was kind of really pointless in my opinion, because they had two of the same modes. They would have like regular Slayer, and then they'd have TU Slayer or something like that, and it was just to get rid of armor locks, get rid of jetpacks, get rid of Bloom. And they tried to do this, and almost no one really played it besides the super competitive players, but yet they tried to do everything to try and force this to become popular to please some of the more try-hard competitive players, and unfortunately it just did not work. And so that's, where I started seeing a divide happen. It was just like slowly, there was, unfortunately not enough attention given to one side that should have had a little more attention to. And because of that, it started becoming this fight over trying to please everyone. And that's when we start seeing that. When 343 comes over, they start having that problem where all they're doing is focusing on the competitive side. So that's why it seems like it's changed for the competitive side being mainly the focus, and then the casual side getting tossed aside. Almost no news and almost like hardly any features for the competitive the casual side, and the competitive side got all the attention. And so for all those that are of the 343 industry generation of Halo may not be aware of this, let me shed you some light on this, because people are surprised by it. It's like, what are you talking about? When I say Halo 4 was designed to be a competitive game. I know that people don't see that as it now, because of all the aspects in it. They don't think it's competitive, but when Halo 4 was first announced, when it came to news and anything game wise, when it came to Halo 4 trying to promote the game, constantly when it came to the launch of this game was always news about the competitive side. These whether it be IGN or anyone, it was always trying to even 343 themselves trying to go around and get the approval of the competitive community, constantly going to these esport players and these at these MLG events and trying to say, hey, play Halo 4, do you like it, is it competitive enough? And that's all that it seemed like to be, was the news like, hey, is Halo 4 competitive? And two of the biggest people that said that Halo 4, yeah, it's definitely more competitive than other Halo games, and saying that stuff. Two of those people that said that Halo 4 was competitive enough when they were trying to get approval was T Squared and Ninja. Yeah, that's right. So Ninja, who's all big in the news right now, and T Squared, who he was a little bit big in the news recently for something he said that I've already been over that. It's a lot of other YouTubers have been over that, but yeah, these two guys were the ones approving that Halo 4 was definitely competitive. And That's all it was. It was always just, you know, the developers trying to get approval from esport players about whether or not it was competitive enough. That was them. That was them just constantly trying to get their approval. And, you know, I have some footage here just playing of showing you that that's, if you want to watch the full thing, just, you know, look up, you know, Halo 4 launch esport events and whatnot, or MLG, and like anything like dated prior to Halo 4. That's all they were doing. Watch the interviews with, you know, Ninja and T-Squared, and you'll see for yourself that that's pretty much what they were doing. There was other, you know, big time esport players, but these two are the ones that I know most notably, because they just kept, every time I kept seeing advertisements for the game, this is what I saw. It was like, look, the esport community approves, so should you, and that kind of mentality. And then when the Halo 4 came out, it was like, this isn't really fun. And it was just, it really wasn't the experience that the casual side wanted, and it was really more designed for the competitive community, even though the competitive community goes, well, it's not competitive in the way that I wanted to be competitive. But the fact is, even if it was or not, the fact of the matter is all they cared about was getting the casual, getting the competitive's approval, and the casuals got tossed aside pretty much. There was no one like asking how the casuals feel about the game. It was always how the competitive cared about it. They just non-stop promoted Halo 4. You're trying to be competitive. And again, skipping over MCC, we go to Halo 5, because even though all the people in Halo 4, the majority that left were probably casuals, they go on their forums where it's mostly filled up with competitive players. Some of the people that are the fringe group of the competitive community that need the game to be super competitive, and they go, no, the real reason why Halo 4's population died was it wasn't even competitive enough. We need more competitiveness to the game. And so they go, so, you know, 3 for 3 trying to, you know, please the community and thinking that this is the thing, and then not realizing that the majority on the forums are just super try-hard competitive players that have no life, pretty much. The Halo 5, when it came to development, what did they do? Watch the documentary called Halo 5 The Sprint. Don't believe me? Watch it. All they did for that development is they got esport MLG players testing their games and constantly making tweaks based on what the esport players wanted. They never brought a single casual in and said, hey, are you having fun? I know that you're a Halo fan that is a casual player. Are you actually enjoying the multiplayer? Are you enjoying this experience? They didn't bring any of that in there. They only brought the competitive players, the super tryhards trying to make it esport. And that's what they did. That's all they focused on, is trying to please the esport players, and then the casual side just got, you know, shoved off to the side, like whatever. So that's the thing. When it comes to Halo 4 and Halo 5, they were focused only on the competitive aspect of the game, and then that's why you see when the game launched, when Halo 5 launched, what was on there? You got a campaign and maybe some social games, but what was the rest of the games? All competitive. It was all about competitive. So when it comes to news about Halo Infinite saying that it's going to be more esport focused, that gives me like flashbacks going, are we talking about going more competitive again? Like saying that Halo 5 wasn't competitive enough, we're going to be making it even more competitive? That's the thing. It's just the multiplayer was just so overhyped and over pushed on this competitive aspect, and then none of the casual players liked it. Again, when it came to the original series, they tried to make it so that it was how the player chose to play the game in a competitive feeling that made the game competitive. Not that they made the mechanics and everything so competitive that you had to either adjust to it. The best example is like my dad, for example. He used to love playing Halo. He played Halo 2 and Halo 3. He was, you know, around a 40 rank. He played more of the multiplayer than I did, even though I think I'm still better than him. I let him, you know, have my Xbox 360 when I got an Xbox One, and he still played Halo 2 up until what was it? Yeah, because we had actually at that time 2 Xbox 360s, and so he was playing Halo 2 and Halo 3 while I was getting ready for Halo Reach's launch when you know, Halo 2 eventually dropped out, and then he was playing just Halo 3 constantly, and he would play Lone Wolves over and over, and he was really good at it. He was good. He just, you know, obviously wasn't a 50, but he was obviously good at it, and I'll go into later about that ranking system that was atrocious. But the fact of the matter was, he'd be playing Halo 3, and he was really good at that game. He had no problem taking on pretty good players, unless they were like try-hard boosters. Other than that, he was really good at that game. And so while I'm playing Halo 5 and he's still playing Halo 3, I came over one day with my Xbox One, and I decided, hey, I want to try and play it. And he plays Halo 5, and he struggles to get a couple kills. The game had been so over-revamped with how competitive it was that going from Halo 3 to Halo 5 was such a drastic change. He couldn't actually, this was like, what the fuck? You couldn't even adjust to it. And so you have to see that even these people that, even my dad, who is, could play competitively, he plays the game, and it's just a completely like, oh, we gotta revamp the whole system, we've changed everything about it, and now you have to adjust this whole new way of playing Halo. And it's just, that's why I think it's just way too much change to try and please a super fringe group of competitive players, and trying to make it so esport focused that they basically made the rest of the community go, this isn't really that fun to play. And that's the thing. That's why it worries me when they say that it's going to be more esport focused. What do they mean by that? Do they mean that they're going to make it more focused on, when it comes to esport events, making sure that it's putting the spotlight enough, or are they going to make it so the multiplayer is so focused competitively that it's not going to be a fun experience for the casual side? Again, that's what happened after Halo 3 or after Halo Reach. It was Halo 4, make it competitive. And then that failed. Oh, it needs to be more competitive. Halo 5, more competitive. No one liked that. Okay, Halo Infinite, let's make it more competitive. That's the thing. It seems like a repetition happening, and so I hope that's not the case here when it comes to Halo Infinite. Because Halo 1 through Halo Infinite, it seems to be that's the case here, that's all they're focused on. Spartan Ops didn't go over well. Warzone had, its moment. At first it was, kind of fun, and then there was tons of issues, and the fact that it was just microtransaction driven took out the entire casual aspect of it, and the fact that everyone's trying to get to 152 to get some armor that actually turned out was not the case. There's going to be no armor for it, but everyone was like, oh yeah, you're going to get an armor for it, and then 343 community team whatnot had to come out and actually say, hey, if that's what you're going for, you might want to stop grinding right now, because that's you're gonna be disappointed. And that's the case here. Is that that's all that's happening with the Warzone, is everyone's just trying to core cap and spawn kill to get tons of points to help rank up quicker. That's all they're doing in that game. So that's the thing that it worries me, because it's just like the casuals are not really getting any good experiences. They did eventually come out with the custom game browser, which was a really good idea. Obviously I give 343 a lot of grief on things that I don't like that they did, but one of the things I will say that they did well with helping the casual community was the custom game browser. The only problem was it was just so late into the game. Hopefully that that little feature that they had that was amazing, hopefully they have it at launch. I really do, because that really did help a lot when it came to custom games. Otherwise, custom games would have practically been dead, just like how quickly it died off in Halo 4. Custom games were just like pretty much dead there too. You had to either find an LFG group online, because a lot of times you just could not find people playing custom games. There was just a lot of features missing. Obviously when it came to like things like infection, you couldn't even hold a weapon. They had to actually add that in a way later update to be able to hold weapons. That was just ridiculous. And so yeah, you had like some minor changes to Forge, and obviously the flood mode was just basically infected flood players were overpowered as hell with shields and thrusting around. In fact, in Halo MCC, when I play Infection, thank God for the composer, I void Halo 4 entirely, because it is not fun. Seriously, take off their shields and take off the sprint. Make them move quicker, that's totally fine with me, but the whole thrusting around, using Promethean vision, going cloaking, and having shields, I hate that. You can't go on rampages. I like the idea of being able to go on at least a lot of kills. Maybe you get 10 20 kills. Most people don't even get like 5. If you're lucky, you do get 10. If you get 10, that's pretty good, but I want to see go on a 10 20 kill spree with not like, oh, you're barely making it before you run out of ammo. And so that's you know, that's what I disliked about it, was how over the top it was with trying to make everything competitive, including the flood mode that was supposed to be an improved infection mode. Again, Halo 5 didn't have Forge at the end of when it came out, but you know what they did have? They had Breakout, a competitive driven game mode. It was, you know, completely driven on the whole competitive aspect, and yet what did the casuals get? Nothing. They pretty much got tossed to the side again. And you know, Firefight didn't come out till way later in the custom game browser. Most of these cool features didn't come out till later. And then, you know, when you looked into like custom game browser and social multiplayer, and you know, adding in both Warzone and Warzone Firefight included versus what the arena has, you can tell who the majority of players are still casuals. Even when casuals don't like play the multiplayer for the most part, they're playing, you know, at least custom games. And yet, even though that there was still a casual base here, still casuals existing, when it came to all these updates, like I wanted to mention more in depth here, almost all the updates were competitive stuff. In fact, for one of the months, I remember, I don't remember which month it was, but I remember there was 3 different updates to tuning weapons, mostly the BR, 3 times. 3 times there was an update within a month to fix a BR. And not one time did they ever fix any of the issues with the casual side. Seriously, there's been issues with Halo 5's casual play that they have not fixed since launch. Again, I did that in my video about some of the things that they should fix on Halo 5 before they move over to Halo Infinite. And one of the problems that happens in casual games is when people quit or join, the game freezes. There are hybrid zombies, that's what I like to call them, where they're both on the they're zombies, but they're both on the infected and the survivors team. They both show friendly and they can't kill anyone and they just get in the way. And then you have like all sorts of like first round glitches where the game starts broken and all these things, yet they haven't fixed any of those things, but they'll fix a BR 3 times just to please a super fringe group of the competitive side. Thus, this leaves me to believe that 343 is still on this focus of we need to get esport approval, that we need to always get them, you know, the first, you know, say on anything, that we need to please them first, and then the casuals who make up the, you know, majority of the community, that they make up, you know, nothing, or that they don't really care. That's the thing that I really worry about, is that's what the impression is starting to go off again, that they're going to do the same thing that they did with Halo 4 and Halo 5, where it was, hey, it doesn't matter what the casuals think, do we please the is the competitive side pleased? They're going to probably bring in more esport players to focus on the multiplayer and making the maps designed for that, and then you just wonder, is anyone else going to get any, you know, anything else? Is the casual side just going to be, when it comes to multiplayer, just nothing? It seems like they're hoping that the competitive side, when it comes to making sure that it's at MLG events and that you see all these, you know, Twitch streamers and YouTube channels for competitive players, that they're showing off the game, that it's going to somehow get the casual side to join, when that's not what the casuals want. They'll watch it and say, wow, that's some cool gameplay. But the fact of the matter is that that's not what a casual person is going to buy the game for. They're not going to say, wow, that game looks super competitive, I'm going to play it. I watch, you know, people play, what was it, Rainbow Six Siege, but I'm not, you know, even though that game's super competitive, I have no interest in buying that game. People want to be more interested when there's a casual experience. In fact, I found that when people found out a video that came out showing off some of the great forges that were made, including a duck hunt, not just duck hunt, I think it was like a bird hunting game. It was like from the old classic game, but it was instead, you know, a custom game in Halo 5, where people are just flying around and the person has to snipe them while they're flying around in the air and whatnot. They were like completely surprised by this. They were like, wait, this all exists in Halo 5? That's what gets people interested, is when they completely go, wow, this is actually in the game. And I go, yeah, you can also play free custom games of Halo 5 on your Windows 10. And people were like, what? I didn't even know about this. So all these great features, including that Halo 5 Forge that, you know, wasn't at launch, all these great features just that casuals would have actually wanted to buy and play the game, they weren't buying it because all they saw was the competitive side. Casuals also do stream. Casuals do upload YouTube videos like myself. I do play casually. I play custom games, and I see a lot of big time YouTubers that also do it as well, and that's what is basically free advertisement for Halo. So they shouldn't just focus on esport and competitive experiences. They should focus on making sure that casuals in multiplayer and in custom games and so forth, that basically the casual side is getting cared for as well, because they're the ones that are going to be also streaming multiplayer gameplay clips, and they're the ones that also are going to be freely advertising your game. And so if they're not having fun in the multiplayer playing and matchmaking, then what's the point? That's the thing here, is that you need to be able to please both sides, because both sides of the community make up this. I'm going to keep driving it that it's both sides that need to get focused on, and not just one or the other. In fact, when I ask people what side do they want to see Halo go with, everyone says they want both. They don't want it casually driven. They don't want it competitively driven. There's not this competitive driven Halo game that they want. It's in fact really low, and everyone wants to see a mix of both. So this is, again, free advertisement that they're just getting for free. If they have it for a both-sided experience where both sides are having fun and both people are having a good time, you're going to see clips of people posting casual and competitive, and it's going to help advertise the game. But when you don't have a fun casual experience, it's gonna obviously make people move on to other things. Bungie used to, back in the day, do the way it got good advertisement was with Halo 3 and Halo Reach, was they had ways you could render your clips on the Bungie.net, and you could actually take those clips onto YouTube. That was pretty cool back then, and that was just with the limitations back then. If and the thing is, Halo 5, you have both, competitive YouTubers and casual YouTubers like Luke the Notable, Proximity, Ubernick, iSpiteful, Zanny Vids, Forge Labs, Comedy Arsehole, the Smurfy 18, and Unsorted Gaming, and so many others. There's not just one side of the community, and so everyone does need to get looked at, and trying to get casuals some insight as to whether they're having a good time playing it. So to only cater to one crowd that is not even the majority is a terrible idea, and so that's why I'm not so happy about seeing saying that it's going to be a strong esport focus with multiplayer gaming. Appears it makes it feel like that they've forgotten the majority of the Halo community again. That's the one news the whole thing that's really got me the most concerned about. That also I've see this controversy constantly happening. There's literally people that are so try hard in being competitive that they'll tell other people, oh, if you don't play competitively in Halo, go back to Call of Duty. You have to be competitive. That's all Halo is. And then they wonder why there's not that high of a player count, and that they don't understand why that Halo's no longer in the spotlight, and that it doesn't get Game of the Year, because they think that it should be competitive only, and that'll somehow make everything better. But no, again, if you make it for Halo Infinite that people can go theater mode, a working theater mode, and upload clips easily to things like Instagram if they want to, or they can upload it to YouTube or anything like that, make it easily available, ready to do in a split second, they could just easily upload these clips, you're getting free advertisement right there. And if they're having a good time playing it and they're going to start uploading that, that's going to help Halo Infinite, not trying to make it esport focused only. So just showing them doing the same exact thing, that they're going to go down that same route, is what's got me worried about Halo Infinite for the most part. As stated in my videos, I wanted to see in things like Forageable Firefight, such a mode that if it were to exist in Halo Infinite would be huge in advertising that game, because people would do all sorts of crazy stuff, and also more customization, more people having fun doing more stuff in the game. That's what people want to see. And Halo 5 being a multiplayer esport focused and casuals being put to the side is not going to do that. There's two sides of this community. There's two different types of players. There's always been this kind of experience, and so for 343 to just ignore one side because I think that somehow having an esport focused is gonna for multiplayer is going to somehow make it better. That's what's got me worried here. I know I keep reiterating that, but that's my concern. Hopefully though that's not the case, and that they're going to actually care about the casual side, that they're going to bring in some casual players and actually say like, well, here's some Halo fans that are actually casual players and they're having a good experience. And that's because hopefully that is the case, that they can actually bring some casuals in and have a good time and not just the competitive side. I know they're probably going to bring in esport players, and they're going to bring in all these competitive players, but that are Halo fans and whatnot. But the question is, are they going to bring any casuals in? Are they going to say, are the casuals having fun? Because the problem is I'm against a lot of these divides. That's why I'm against the idea in Halo 5. I don't necessarily like the idea of having both a classic and a regular multiplayer. I don't like that. I don't like that because of the fact that what it's doing is it's dividing the community up even further. So you already got an arena system, but then they want a classic playlist because people don't like the movement. That's why I went with the whole sprint video about what maybe we can do to fix it, because I don't think we should be going on forward having two drastically changing multiplayers where there's no clamber and no sprint for one part of the playlist, and then another side of the playlist it has these, and the playlists are drastically different. The problem is it's trying to become bigger and bigger by trying to please all these small minor groups of people, and then by doing so what happens is you have all these different things, and then you split up the community even further. What we need to do is find ways to bring the community together, and that's why when I went with the whole sprint thing, about maybe adding momentum-based sprint in, where it would be more on the lines of Halo 3, but you moved fast as Halo 5, and adding in some stopping power mechanics, that it might actually resolve the entire issue, and that we can actually have just one multiplayer. And if someone doesn't want that experience, or they don't want the momentum buildup, all they have to do is, in custom games, turn it off. That's simple as that. They have stuff like that in Halo 5 too, which is pretty interesting, and I wish they would actually have something like that for Halo Infinite, trying to basically try and make two sides of the community, rather than trying to make it so that there's a super competitive side and another side that just wants classic playlists and all this stuff. And that's the problem, is we need to find a way to improve the multiplayer in a way that everyone's going to enjoy it, and not have to try and change it for just a small fringe group, and then you have two sides of a split community. We've already got an arena system, and we already have a social playlist system, but now on top of the arena system we have that split off to two other groups. And then what's going to end up happening? Splitting and splitting, because we were trying to please all the competitive players, even the very minute fringe group we're trying to please. And the problem is that that's not a good thing, is that we're going to keep focusing on what a few people on that side want, then completely ignore the entire other side of the playlist, and then you have a complete mess of a multiplayer. So I really hope that when it comes to Halo Infinite, that they do recognize that there's two sides of the community, that there's not just one side, and that when it comes to where the direction of Halo 5, or not Halo 5, where Halo Infinite's multiplayer, when it comes to Halo 5's multiplayer, that they decide to make it driven both casually and competitively, and not be one focused. Hopefully that's the case. Hopefully they can find some sort of fair balance and whatnot, and not just be like, oh, here you go, competitives, all these great news, by the way, you filthy casuals, here's something that we'll get around to eventually in like a year or so. We need to have at launch both a casual and competitive experience right off the bat when the game comes out. If they do this, I really believe that it'll be in the best interest of Halo Infinite. Anyways, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you all for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe. Again, yeah, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Comment down below what your thoughts and opinions were on the video, what exactly you're hoping for with Halo Infinite, if it's a casual or competitive driven, or if it's both. Let me hear what you guys have to say. And also, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to do more of these. I have another Controversies video I'm working on of the ranking controversy between arena versus level, and also hit notifications when you want to get an update. Anyways, you take care. See you guys all later. Bye.
Yeah.